Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, but more specifically, we're going to discuss the Bitcoin dominance. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, this video series on the Bitcoin dominance has not made me any friends in 2022. I used to actually be quite bearish on the Bitcoin dominance back in 2021, 2020, and discussing the idea of the Ethereum tsunami, right, altcoin season, etc. And that was when a lot of people, were in agreement with the idea that the dominance would go lower. However, really since about Q4 of 2021, I have actually turned bullish on the Bitcoin dominance. Now, over the macro scale, I think there's a case to be made that eventually it will break down. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video. But in the short to medium term, I can't help but think that the most likely direction for it still remains up. Now, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty details of this and then talk about why it hasn't moved up in a significant way just yet, or at least my general speculation on it, okay? So right now, the dominance of Bitcoin still sits very low, right? It's at 40.61%. And it might feel like the dominance has gone down this year. However, 12-month candles would say that's not actually true. Okay, the dominance is slightly up in 2022. The reason why it feels like it's only going down is because earlier in 2022 it went up a lot, and then we've sort of retraced back to that some of those lower levels. But in fact, so far the dominance has gone up throughout 2022. But I think the better question is why hasn't it gone up more, right? Why is it still sitting at 40.6%? Well, I think the answer to that is a couple things. First of all, remember that this chart includes stablecoins. So we're going to go through the chart where we exclude stablecoins and show a very different pattern. But when you include stablecoins, if people are selling their altcoins for say, some of these stable coins that people like to use. But for full disclosure, I am not in the stablecoin market right now. I've just been out of stablecoins since Q1. If I'm not holding it, I'm just in cash, just for full disclosure, because this you really never know what happens in bear markets. But the stablecoin market cap has continued to push higher over the last several years, right? And I mean, sometimes in bear markets it'll come down some, but it has not yet come down in any meaningful way. So then, if we were to sort of take a tour of what the dominance has done so far, we can kind of see where things currently are and try to understand why the dominance still remains somewhat low. For instance, if you were to go look at a lot of altcoins, they're down a lot on their Bitcoin pairs. For instance, ADA Bitcoin, right? ADA Bitcoin from the all-time high is down 69%, and I would argue it could continue to go down. That doesn't mean that the bottom for ADA USD is going to take until ADA Bitcoin bottoms. Remember, ADA bottomed against the US dollar in 2018, and then it bottomed against Bitcoin in 2019. But you look at these charts and you're like, well, a lot of these altcoins are down 60, 70, 80% against Bitcoin, right? Polkadot's down 66% against Bitcoin. Link is down 78% against Bitcoin. Uni is down from its top, is down 58% against Bitcoin. Litecoin from June of 2021 is still down 51% against Bitcoin. It's up since June against Bitcoin, but a lot of these have just bled quite a lot against Bitcoin, since their highs from 2021. So then why is the dominance still so high? Well, a couple of reasons, right? A couple of reasons. First of all, not all cryptocurrencies have bled against Bitcoin. The Ethereum Bitcoin valuation has been holding up so far, okay? Now, if you go look at my videos back in 2019, I speculated back then that the Ethereum Bitcoin bull market, the Ethereum valuation against Bitcoin should remain in a bull market until 2023. However, I decided in May of 2022, I thought it was over, right? I thought the Ethereum valuation against Bitcoin bull market was over. The first video on my channel is the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation right here, and I said I think it's going to go up. Right here, I thought I was done, okay? Did not think it was going to have another pop back up to the upside. Thought it was done, okay? But it did, right? The merge brought back more hype and it popped back up once again. So the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation has been holding on. Now, it might feel like Ethereum Bitcoin is up this year, but again, 12-month candles would prove that wrong and show you that this year Ethereum's Bitcoin valuation is down 9%. So then again, why is the dominance of Bitcoin still so low when it seems like everything, most everything, not everything, there are a few that have continued to do well, but a lot of the altcoin market has just continued to put in new lows against Bitcoin over the last 12 months? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, again, there are a few altcoins that have done well. Second of all, we have to consider the stablecoin market separately. So this Bitcoin dominance chart includes stablecoins. This is my website, right? So you can see that this includes stablecoins. But what's interesting, if you don't include stablecoins, you get a very different picture. It does not paint the same picture as if you include stablecoins. And in fact, what you'll see is that the dominance has simply been putting in higher lows all year when you exclude stablecoins. So when you take the stablecoin out of it and you look at just the altcoin market and the Bitcoin market together without stablecoins, you'll see that the dominance has actually been moving higher all year. Perhaps another way to visualize this is to take a moving average and say take the, like a 50-day moving average of the Bitcoin dominance. And you'll notice that the low on the 50-day SMA of dominance for Bitcoin was put in back in January. And since then, it just continues to slowly move higher. It can take a while, just like we've seen before, but it continues to slowly move higher. I would argue it's building out a base. Now, one of the things we can also do is we can look at this and draw. You can imagine lines sort of connecting the peaks and connecting the bottoms. I actually have it over here. So on this chart, you'll notice, right, that the Bitcoin dominance, excluding stablecoins, continues to put in lower highs, but it also puts in higher lows over the macro scale. So while I remain short to medium term bullish on the Bitcoin dominance, I would argue that after Bitcoin has another parabolic run at some point, you will see another altcoin season and the Bitcoin dominance will come back down. Now, if you think back to 2022, I have said cash is king and the altcoin market is too risky. And if you're considering altcoins, it's probably a good idea to take a cold shower and reconsider. And the reason for that is because I would argue that Bitcoin has just simply been in a bear market. And we also know that the dominance of Bitcoin normally goes up in a bear market, right? Now, this bear market, it has gone up very, very slowly, a lot slower than it did last bear market. But you'll notice that it's simply been putting in higher lows basically since mid-2021. The Bitcoin dominance, excluding stablecoins, has been putting in higher lows. And I still think the path of least resistance is to ultimately break back up to the upside. Not only are we seeing a lot of the altcoins break down against Bitcoin, but we also know that there are going to likely be some regulations coming that will hit the altcoin market in ways that it won't affect Bitcoin. We also know that Bitcoin often goes parabolic before the altcoin market really takes off again. Doesn't mean you can't have many altcoin seasons, but for the most part, that's the case. Now, if you think back to 2022, I've said all year that I think altcoins are too risky. And every time we have a counter trend rally, a bear market rally, everyone starts to question that. They're like, well, we're going back up. It's altcoin season. Where has it gotten you, right? Most altcoins have just simply remained in systematic downtrends. That's the case, right? They've just remained in systematic downtrends, basically for the entire year. And some of these downtrends actually started in 2021. So we can also imagine if we extend this out, let's say 5 years, and we sort of connect the peaks, right? If we connect this and connect it down here at the bottom, they're going to converge at some point, probably in 2026. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen in 2026, but I will say that in the short term, I still do remain bullish on the Bitcoin dominance. I recognize that it is taking a long time to play out when you include stablecoins. But again, when you exclude stablecoins and you just look at alt Bitcoin pairs and not, alt USD pairs and all that sort of stuff, or stablecoin pairs, you can in fact see that the dominance has been moving higher. And again, if you're not sure about that, you can always go look at the altcoin's valuation against Bitcoin. One of the altcoins that has done better against Bitcoin, and there's always a few, and I've been honest about this throughout the bear market. There's always a few that do, right? Matic's valuation against Bitcoin has sort of potentially here put in a double top, right? We could argue that there's at least a chance here that the Matic Bitcoin pair has put in a double top. Another altcoin that has done relatively well is the BNB Bitcoin pair. But I will say that, this is not that dissimilar from what we've seen in prior bear markets with BNB. And in fact, BNB's Bitcoin valuation was putting in a new high in mid 2018, halfway through the bear market, right? Before the altcoin reckoning even occurred. So keep that in mind, right? I mean, like, not all altcoins will bleed against Bitcoin throughout the entire bear market. They might bleed at various phases and also in Bitcoin bull markets, but they don't necessarily all have to bleed. There's always a few that outperform. But I would argue over the macro scale and over most altcoins, they are significantly down, right? Avalanche is down 70% against Bitcoin. Solana is down 83% against Bitcoin, and so on and so forth, right? We can go through a ton of altcoins. Most are down significantly against Bitcoin. And it's only when you exclude stablecoins that you really start to see that the dominance is actually what I would consider it's sort of curling back around and likely heading back in the other direction. Now, if you think about what's happened recently in the cryptoverse and this contagion that we're feeling, I think a lot of regulations are coming, and I think it's likely going to affect the altcoin market more severely than it'll affect Bitcoin. Okay? Normally, you need to see Bitcoin go on a parabolic rally before you're really going to see altcoins do well again. It doesn't mean they can't have, pathetic pumps that get everyone excited again in a bear market and get them to FOMO back in, and they, then they make fun of the bears and say, all right, look at me, they bought the altcoin bottom. You fast forward a few months, that altcoin's just putting in new lows, right? I mean, and a lot of altcoins are great examples of this. Polkadot, Solana, Cardano, and so on and so forth. And then some of these altcoins have just simply gone to zero, right? Like think of Luna. This is why I say it's not that altcoins can't sometimes do well in bear markets. It's just that you don't always know which ones they're going to be. And most of them will still go down 70, 80, 90%, right? That's something I think it's important to consider. The other thing I've said before is that just because an altcoin is down 80% doesn't mean it can't go down another 80%. And we're really starting to see that finally come to fruition in some of these charts. Like look at the Solana USD chart. So if you look at Sol USD, you'll notice that it was down 80% a long time ago, right? A long time ago, back in May, it was already down 80%. And I've been adamant that just because they're down 80% does not mean they can't go down another 80%. And even from this level, Solana against the US dollar has already gone down another 78% to mark a 95% drop from the all-time high, almost 96%. In the last cycle, ADA went down 95% at this first drop here, 95, 96%. I thought the bottom was in back then. It wasn't. Even from this 95, 96% drop, it still dropped another 57%. So after the first 80% drop, which actually occurred really quickly, after this first 80% drop on ADA USD back then, from that level, another 80% drop got us down to around 5 cents. So we had two 80% drops. And from there, we had another 52% drop, right? So this is why I say, like the altcoin market is just so risky in bear markets. And one of the most common retorts I see, people say, well, Bitcoin's not doing any better. Well, first of all, it is doing somewhat better than a lot of the altcoin market. And second of all, that's why cash is king in 2022, right? There's no reason to point to another asset that's maybe slightly doing better, but if you point to another asset and say, well, this one's doing about as bad, right? Well, that's not really a consolation prize, right? Like the entire market is in a bear market, and cash has been king in 2022. So all of these, I think, are important things to consider when thinking about, what is the Bitcoin dominance going to do? What direction is it likely going to head? Is it going to go higher when you include stablecoins? I still think it will. Okay, I honestly do think that even including stablecoins, the dominance should go higher at some point. Notice that over here in 2018, we put in a low and then we put in a higher low, right? So like if we were to draw a line, notice that we put in a low and then later on, we put in a higher low and then we continue to move up. I still think that that is ultimately the path of least resistance. I don't know how long it's going to take to play out, but I would argue that the dominance needs to go up before the altcoin market can be seen as healthy and more than just a bear market counter trend rally type of way. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.